So let's start with Irresistible.
Yeah, why not? As you can tell, I'm really excited about this.
So this was a Jon Stewart directed film starring Steve Carell, Rose Byrne, and Chris Cooper. And do you want to tell us a brief outline of the storyline?
Well, just for people who don't know, Jon Stewart was most well known for being the host of The Daily Show in America. He's one of those I recognise the name, and I looked up a picture of him. And I was like, oh, it's that guy. You've seen like clips of him on Twitter and YouTube and stuff. But yeah, Steve Carell plays a Democratic political consultant that decides to help Chris Cooper's character run for mayor in a small Wisconsin town, to sort of attempt to push a swing state to the side of Democrats. And then he is met with Republican opposition in the form of Rose Byrne. And to be honest, that's all you really need to know about it.
Yeah, I mean it's a typical Hollywood political satire movie. You can see where they've gotten I mean
Mm.
a lot of it feels like it's basically taken straight from the writing room of these kind of sketches, but it's been pulled out to an entire film. And that's probably my first criticism.
Yeah, it does seem like a thin idea, well, a small idea spread too thin.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'll say just to the on the off, because I wasn't overly bothered by this film at all, but it did have a few jokes that I kind of liked. There was one about nuns, which I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, there's a bit, and there's some misidentification in big data, and they go down a certain political strategy that's meant to be it's in the pro-choice, pro-life debate, and the demographic that they discover, a lot of people that are childless, and they misidentify them when they realise that it's actually
A convent.
a convent.
Convent.
And
Can't get
they
the
say,
word.
well, do you know how many votes we're going to be getting from them? Nuns
That's
of
it.
them.
It's a convent of nuns. That's exactly how many are going to be voting for us. Nuns of them. I
Yeah,
did actually laugh at that, but then when you say it like that, it doesn't sound that funny.
yeah.
But I did laugh a
And
bit
I
at
have
that.
now murdered the joke for anyone that wants to go and see
Yeah,
that. But
in typical CSM description, you've killed it.
yeah,
And I did like the job it did highlighting the ridiculousness of election campaigns on the whole, like how ludicrous they get and how much of a popularity contest it is. And
yeah,
I thought, just because I think like that's a lot easier fodder for comedy. But as far as, I mean, to be honest, that's about all positives I have to say about it. I mean, Steve Carell, I like Steve Carell. He's never bad in anything.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I found like it's slightly too soft on not really wanting to piss too many people off for a political satire.
I was disappointed by that. It pulled so many punches, and also I mean I've got a very high standard for political satire. Like I grew up watching The Thick of It, and that's an amazing TV show, which encapsulated British politics so well,
Yeah,
and that was just full of quips and little digs here and there, and no one came off scot free. But you could tell this. It felt like it was written on the side of the Democrats for one, which is okay, but then you have to kind of invest more into it, and it just felt a little bit flaky. And yeah, I just don't. It didn't really hit. It felt like there weren't enough moments that were consistently funny, that you were kind of waiting and searching for those punchlines that didn't always deliver.
yeah. I think it reminded me of I can't remember when the film came out, but you know the campaign with Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis.
I didn't see that one.
It was a fair few years ago now, but it was more. It was an election campaign again, but then it was more on the stupidity side, as far as these two characters are dumb, and we're gonna laugh at that more so. And obviously, it did have some criticism of the campaigns themselves and how people are easily swayed and stuff, but it was a lot more tongue in cheek and stupid. But then
Yeah,
it knew that it was stupid, and it sort of lent into that. It wasn't a great film, but at least it knew what it was trying to do and sort of went for it a bit more.
yeah.
Whereas this sort of, it knew what it wanted to be, but it just didn't quite do it.
It didn't feel like it was really well placed. It was like it had a bit of an identity crisis partway through, and it some parts almost rang quite genuine and quite heartfelt and soulful,
Mm.
but then halfway through you kind of just lost interest in that, and you're like, well, maybe they're just trying to be a bit silly. And I was never really comfortable with what they were trying to achieve, and like to make a horrible little joke, I'd say, much like politicians, they promised a lot and delivered very little.
That's the sound of silence there. There would be crickets playing if I had the sound effect on my laptop.
If only we had a live studio audience, they'd be
They could also be dead silent. Right
they'd be
now.
fucking going crazy for that right now.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of, like, when you're at an event or something and one of your mates is like, oh, I could do way better than that, or like bigs themselves up, and then like in some old like 90s TV show, and then they do get on stage and they're so nervous that they just don't do it. It's kind of what it reminded me of, being like, oh yeah, I can make a really good political satire, and then you give them the funds and means to do it, and it's just not nearly biting enough.
Yeah. And it did that same like post credits scene, which is like the where are they now, and that was kind of like, it felt like they hadn't really achieved enough, so they had to get in a few quick jokes, a few quick little bits, and they were like, haha, look, see, we're ending this on a high. Look at all the funnies, and again, just didn't deliver for me. But there were some moments that were fairly positive. So let's go on to ratings.
I give it a 5 out of 10, just because it was some funny bits. It had a good cast, but that almost makes it worse in that they sort of wasted a good cast. But yeah, it was just, I went for bang in the middle just because it was bang in the middle film, and I'll probably have forgotten about it in a month.
Yeah, well, I was fairly similar. I gave it a 4. I wasn't comfortable to even put it right bang in the middle. I felt like it was just too disappointing for me. But what are you gonna do?
Well, that's fine. I'm sure it'll live.